like I said, yesterday I spent about 2.5 hours on the phone listening to the parole hearings because, they're telephonic. And I was there to talk for my friend Steve. I happened to hear 3 other guys' names I know called, and they've all been in prison for a while, and nobody was there to speak for them, And I wanted to speak for them, and I chose not to because I didn't want to dilute my presence when it came time to talk for Steve. I didn't want them to be like, damn, this motherfucker doesn't have a job. What is he doing?
Yeah, he'll talk,
and every goddamn hearing,
everybody.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Stop. Because they'll tell you, they'll say, we're on item 16 on page 3, inmate Larry Williams. Anybody who wants to talk for Larry Williams, push *6 to unmute your phone. So that's how you do it, right? And if nobody was there to talk, they would pass it by. But then if somebody came on, hey, have you done Larry Williams yet? They may go back and let you talk.
Yeah.
So basically you have to sit there the whole day.
Right. So I didn't want them to say when I got on, yeah, LaFleur for Cobourn, LaFleur, stop pushing *6. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Get out of here. But anyway, so Steve comes up. And before Steve came up, I'm hearing family member after family member after family member for different people begging for, something to happen. And there were times that they would say no, because how it would work after somebody would speak, they would, and they never say this, anybody in support, anybody out there in support. But once somebody speaks in support, it's like, is anybody out there in opposition? Anybody? Hello, is anybody out there? I think Mr. Smith and Mrs. Jones, maybe they're not here. Maybe let me see if I can get them on the line. I mean, like they're reaching out, trying to get somebody to talk against you.
Yeah, but they don't reach out to get anybody to talk for you.
Oh hell no! And there was a couple of them, that have been in some trouble. And afterwards, it's like the mantra. Because in the beginning, it's called the regular hearings, and all you need is 2 commissioners. So the commissioner would get on there and say, well, having read the Larry Williams case in its entirety and being familiar with the elements, I elect to agree with the parole examiner's recommendation of no change. And then the other guy would say, yes, and based on his institutional record, I agree as well. And that's it.
Yeah.
And
so there's an element that will never change and another element that will never change. So there's no room for showing any growth or change. Right.
So
because they're going by static information.
So, and then some guys, like one of the commissioners, would get on there sometimes and say, I agree based on the fact that there was a firearm used and the victims were in fear of their life. Like there was a guy who had a robbery case in 1973.
Wow.
That is still, he's out. He's on supervision, but they still won't let him off supervision. A robbery case. Now there was another guy with a robbery case from like 1981. He's still locked up. And, but the shenanigans, it was, well, based on the fact that there was a deadly weapon used, I agree with the recommendation of the examiner.
Yeah.
Well, goddamn, the weapon was used 35 years ago.
Exactly.
The examiner just says no change.
And that's never going to change.
The fucked up part is Steve has a suspended date. Hasn't been in any trouble since 2009, right? And the examiner says, I'm not allowed to recommend a change in your case. So now the examiner who says I'm not allowed, now the parole commission, they agree with the examiner who's not allowed to recommend anything but no change.
Yeah.
So in Steve's case, his lawyer spoke and talked about the Miller versus Alabama and how she met him and how she's convinced that he's sincere in his remorse and he's sorry and he could be a good person. And then the doctor was supposed to speak. And the doctor couldn't get through, so I spoke second. And, I introduced myself. I said, I'm Robert LaFleur. You know, I didn't give my DC number, but I told him, you know,
Yeah.
I spent almost 32 years in prison. You know, I'm a juvenile homicide offender. At the time of my resentencing, my parole date was 2048, you know, and I've been free for almost a year. And I know Steve, we met in 1989, and I lived with him again in 2017 and 18 in the county jail, waiting to be resentenced. And, you know, I explained to him, I know him in a way that nobody here can. You know, I lived with him every day, every week, every month, every year, you know, and I know that he's sorry about what he did. And I know if there was any way that he could, he would undo it. He would make it better. And he just can't, you know. And I said, I know him, and I know that the obstacles that I faced upon release, I know he can overcome them too, and he could be a productive member of society. And I said, and look, even after you guys suspended his date in 2001, he still takes programs. He still strives to be a better person, you know. And I said, I'm here begging you to give him a reasonable chance to be free, you know, set him an effective date and put him in the Lifers program. And then the doctor came on and spoke about the adolescent brain and everything. And they let her go over the 10 minutes, I guess, because of her credentials, I would imagine.
Yeah.
We get that.
Yeah. And at the end, the first guy says, well, I'm going to elect, well, having read the Stephen Cobourn case in its entirety and being familiar with the elements, and based on his lack of transitional program participation, I'm going to agree with no change. Leave his date suspended. And then this next guy comes up and says, well, thank you, doctor, for talking about the adolescent brain and everything. And we understand that there's a difference. And based on the fact that there was a deadly weapon used, a knife, and it was a very heinous and horrendous crime, I too elect no change. And then the third one says, and based on the information provided by the other two commissioners, I too elect no change. And that's it.
So lack of
transitional. And then they say, thank you for your participation. Your testimony was vital in our decision, which is like smacking you on the ass and saying good game after you get blowed out 52-0.
Yeah. And what they mean by lack of transitional program, the only way he can get in the transitional program is through them.
Wait a minute. Are you trying to say that it's just a bunch of bullshit?
Pretty much.
Huh. Well, I thought it was bullshit when the parole examiner says, look, man, you guys are doing great. I'm not allowed to recommend any change because of your suspended date.
Yeah.
You know, and then because they didn't recommend a change, oh, well, I agree, no change. If the examiner wants no change is what it's going to be then.
Yeah, but you tell him that he's not allowed to do that. And then there's no rebuttal for their comments. Once they make it, you can't rebuttal and say, well, listen, you know, your commissionership.
And check it out, right? Yesterday, while I was listening,
that's craziness.
Rachel, Steve's lawyer, was listening too. So while I was listening to all these other people begging for their family members to come home, the most significant thought that I had was, I am so glad that I don't have to beg these fuck motherfuckers for anything. That's what I thought. I said, man, I am so glad that my family and my friends don't have to get on this goddamn phone and beg these worthless pieces of shit for my freedom, because I would never get it.
How are the commissioners put on there?
I don't know. I imagine they sit around and play dueling banjos for the spot. Bling a bling bling bling.
So they're elected through their own little committee, and then the governor ratifies the position.
So how do they?
It's appointed.
Oh, it's appointed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's all basically friends.
It's all them good old boys. Just some good old boys.
Just
Never
like DOC.
Let nobody go home.
Just like DOC. DOC is the same thing.
It is. The parole commission is an extension of the DOC.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's ridiculous.
But that was the one thing that came over my mind.
And we all know who gets promoted, who gets those positions. It's not anybody qualified. No. It's always people who are friends with other people.
You think any of them come from the Department of Justice or anything? I mean, it's not about justice. The
No.
parole commission is never about justice.
No.
How much do they get paid?
More than they should.
Yeah.
We have sunshine laws. Maybe we should be able to look up how much they get paid. What's
I'll
their
ask
names?
Google. Hey, Google, how much do the Florida parole commissioners get paid? Commission on Offender Review salaries. Hold on. Where'd you go? Where'd you go, damn?
Because Florida's got like the broadest sunshine laws, and good old Rick Scott did.
The average commission on offender review salary is $40,846.
That's hardly anything.
But that can't be a commissioner.
That's for parole. That's for probation officers.
Yeah.
And
yeah. Give me a name and I can look up how much. What is a commissioner's name?
Hey Google, what are the names of the Florida parole commissioners? Bernard R. Cohen Sr.
Bernard R. Cohen.
He's the vice chair.
Sr. Let's see if their salaries are up on, because there's a whole thing. If you ever want to look up how much anybody that works in Florida state government makes, all you need to do is Florida has a right to know. Rick Scott put that up. He wanted everybody to know. And that created a lot of hurt feelings.
Yeah.
Because like when people started seeing how much other people were making.
For no reason.
For no, like, and then all of a sudden, like, I'm getting an attitude. I'm like, I have a master's degree. Do we not understand how much I paid for my education and how little I still make based on that? But, you know, people getting their feelings about it. Like, I've been working in my job for 30 years and I only make this. I don't know what to tell you. So let's see. People first, it should come up. Let's see. Bernard Cohen. Let's see what comes up. Let's see if he comes up. Commissioner on Offender Review, Bernard. It's only a part-time position.
Yes.
And he only makes $12.50 an hour for a part-time position.
Says we're running out of time.
9 minutes.
Gummit.
So he only makes, that's how, $12.50 an hour? I wouldn't want to be on there. No wonder they make sure nobody gets out for $12.50 an hour. Why would you want to risk that?
I need to keep my job, keep that income coming in, boy.
Not only that, you think about it. If you have to sit there and, you know, put your reputation, you know, I don't know what they're responsible for if they approve somebody and they go out. And I don't know. I have no idea.
There's no liability.
Yeah, no liability.
See, and this is the thing. This is the thing right here, right? Okay, listen. All this hullabaloo about cops having immunity, right?
Mm-hmm.
This immunity is only intended to extend to a city, state, county, or federal employee who is performing the tasks as outlined by the responsibilities of his position. So that means that a cop pulling somebody over and writing a ticket is immune to prosecution for pulling somebody over and writing a ticket because that's his job.
Yeah.
He's not supposed to be immune for beating somebody to death because there's nowhere in the post orders that says you're going to wear a badge, carry a gun, and beat people to death.
Beat people to death, yeah.
Right? So all this bullshit about how cops should be immune is a bunch of crap because it doesn't cover when they break the law. However, a Florida parole commissioner whose job is to evaluate someone based on the criteria and release them or not. If there is no shenanigans about you getting out of prison, then the commissioners are immune to prosecution for anything that you should do. So all that bullshit about, well, I don't want to risk my job and reputation, I don't need people coming after me, is bullshit. It's a complete reversal.
Yeah.
And then even on here, his job title is post-incarceration enforcement victim rights. So he's there for victim rights.
That's where all of them are from.
That's crazy.
Listen, do you think that any of the commissioners are there from the Department of Justice? Hell no, they're from victims' rights. Oh, listen to this. There's a guy whose case came up yesterday, right? And I'm listening to it because, I mean, there's nothing else to do. And he had a robbery case from 1980, and a detective from the Tampa Bay Police Department, who wasn't working during the time that the crime was committed, obviously. I mean, nobody's fucking working 40 years later. He gets on there and says, I move that the commission not release this inmate because a deadly weapon was used and the victims were in fear of their life. Thank you. I mean, God damn.
You wasn't there.
A guy who wasn't even there, didn't work the case, and is bitching about a gun being used. Well, hello, he's charged with armed robbery. What the fuck do you think he had? A rubber band? Yeah. I mean, armed robbery, having a gun or a weapon is part of the criteria.
I don't know if you remember the guy that used to do the flower beds at Madison.
I remember the flower bed guy.
Yeah, the flower bed guy, he was incarcerated for robbery. He had a life sentence for robbery. And he was he pretty much kept himself, and he did the flower beds. That's all he did. He loved to do the flowers. And, he was up for parole. He was sentenced under parole, and they refused to release him. And so he wound up dying in prison. I looked him up, and he wound up dying in prison. And that's really fucking sad.
Yeah.
Because he said, I have a hard time dealing with the fact that I'm going to die in prison when I didn't kill anybody.
Right.
I didn't kill anyone, and I'm sitting here for a robbery.
The part that gets me is just the hypocrisy of one guy, saying, well, I vote for no change because a gun was used. Well, how many fucking times are you going to vote for no change because a gun was used? This guy's been locked up for 40 fucking years. He's had 6 parole hearings or 5 parole hearings. How many times are you going to talk about this goddamn gun?
Yeah. When that shouldn't be a mitigating factor anyway, because it should be based on the rehabilitation of the person.
You use the gun. You use the gun when you set the initial parole date with the matrix time range. You say, okay, there was a gun used, give him 5 years. But then you don't keep bringing up this fucking gun every goddamn time. Oh, no. Well, look at that. He used a gun. Can't let him out. What the fuck?
Yeah, why not just say you're not up for parole ever? Because that element
anybody who
never change
is not parole eligible. That would just be so much more convenient.
And it'd be a lot less, people getting into their feelings. Because you always had to watch when you had a parole denial. Always had to watch afterwards. Because you'd have people that were upset, rightly so. Yeah, damn. So always had to watch.
I mean, and like the bullshit about Steve. Steve was in wastewater treatment. Steve was in the ambassador program. He was in every goddamn program he could be in. Lack of transitional programs, and there was a deadly weapon used.
Lack of transitional program, but with a life sentence, you can't get into transition programs unless the parole board recommend you to go to the life program or something like that.
If I wasn't on probation, I might have pushed *6 and invited them to do things that are banned in the Bible.
It is crazy. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
It's crazy, man.
Yeah, and all that guy did was plant flowers. Like, that's all he did. What was he going to do when he EOS? Like, he was going to plant flowers. He said, I just want to bring happiness and, color to the compound. And I would just go by and go, nice flower bed. And go, thank you so much. I just try my best with the flowers. Like, that was his thing, was his damn flowers.
And it's such a farce. You don't even get to speak at your own parole hearing.
No, you don't. You don't, man.
That's crazy.
Sure, because they don't want to have to look you in the face. They're a bunch of goddamn cowards.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't want to look you in the face. Well, I'm talking about that gun again. Remember, you used a gun back in 1979.
Yeah.
Motherfucker, what if he was a caveman? Well, you used a piece of wood with a rock tied to it.
Yeah. It's crazy. But it's supposed to be
pathetic, man. It's pathetic. And the worst part is, like I say, you hear these people, old. My sister hasn't been home, for so long, please. Or a woman talking about my daughter, an aunt, her mom's dead, but I'm her aunt, and her mother's dying wish was that her daughter could be free one day. Well, we appreciate you talking, and we're sorry about your sister being dead, but your niece ain't going nowhere.
Yeah.
And And what's crazy is they always want to keep bringing up, you know, the victim's right, the victim right, the victim rights, when the victims don't want the person getting out. But when the victims want the person getting out, they don't want to hear from the victim anymore.
I heard that a few times yesterday too. He shot my brother, and my parents went to their grave being sad about it. You know, okay, man. Well, goddamn.
That element was not going to change.
Yeah, it's never going to change. It's never going to change.
That was like a. Oh, sorry.
We're at 1 minute and 10 seconds.
Yeah, we are. I was just going to bring up that was like a whole thing with people with the death penalty. When their perpetrator against their family, they're like, no death penalty, no death penalty. Government don't want to hear that. You only want to hear when the victim's family says death penalty, death penalty.
So if you liked what we had to say today, please press like, share, and subscribe. Tell a friend about it. And if you have any problems with the DOC, please reach out to us. And I found out that since I don't have to be licensed, I can call myself the Chop It Up Paralegal. I'm the paralegal. Me and Barry, paralegal partners on Chop It Up. You don't have to have a license in Florida to be paralegals.
No.
That's right. I'll tell you about that next time. Barry and I.
Chop
It Up legal team.
Yeah, a pair of legals.
Pair of paralegals. That's right.
All right, man. It's been great.
See y'all later.
All right, man. Miss you guys.
Miss you too, Barry. Bye.
All right.